Oh my gosh, Jen, I have been looking forward to this for a long time. When we connected, gosh, like a month and a half ish ago, I was so glad that we were able to hop on a call and get to know a little bit about each other. And then life and circumstance happens, and here we are, kind of back together. So welcome, and I'm so excited for us to chat for the next few minutes.
Thanks. That makes me like the band's back together. This
I
is
know,
great.
reunion. Uh, so I'll just go ahead and introduce you for those who are watching. So Jenn Taylor is a mom of 18. She is a host of At a Crossroads with the Naked Podcaster for the past 4.5 years. She's also a transformational coach for Christian women and a motivational speaker. So Jenn is an NLP practitioner. So for those who don't know, that stands for neuro-linguistic programming. And she has over 15 years, right, in the foster care system. Is both a parent and a trainer. And she's, as if all of that isn't enough, she also has a blog called Mom's Running It for the past 10 years and is a published author. So Jenn really is, her skill comes with coaching and coming alongside Christian women who are ready to just forge ahead in their purpose and their direction in life, but they're stuck, whether they're not sure what that purpose is, or maybe they want to develop more self-confidence, courage, self-esteem. She really comes alongside and helps women tackle these different areas of their life that's causing them stress and overwhelm, judgment, all these things that we as women and Christian women can relate to. So she works one-on-one within her group program to eliminate past traumas, negative emotions, limiting beliefs, and focuses on relationship, career, and purpose. She's also married to an amazing man. They live in Reno, Nevada. She's a runner, minimalist, and healthy lifestyle enthusiast. And you can find all of this and even more at her website of momat18.com. That's momof18.com. So welcome, Jenn.
Thanks. Wow.
The red carpet.
Right. Yeah. It always feels like that when somebody introduces you, you're like, that person's cool. That's me. I'm that person.
I did the things. What?
I did the things. Wow.
So what got you? I always love a note because I come in contact with a lot of coaches, and one of the things I love to ask them is what led you into to being a transformational coach?
I was a stay-at-home mom for a decade, did the breastfeeding, foster care, made my own baby food, like doing all the stay-at-home mom things. Because I homeschooled back then and I did foster care, I was part of really, really integrated into the community. And I ended up getting divorced and had to go back to work after over a decade of not being in the working world. And at first took 3 jobs to keep all that together. So I had my parenting journey as a stay-at-home mom for 10 years, then a corporate mom for 10 years. And my last job was at a nonprofit where I was recruiting and training foster parents. And I felt so much passion for foster care and foster kids that I really thought I would retire there. Like I had no plans of leaving. But nonprofits funding changes, their outline changes, lots of things change. And when I lost that job, my husband said, we have the ability for you to take a few months off and write a book. And then I had to decide, do I want to write one or talk about writing one? Because talking about writing a book is super easy. There's really like no effort involved. And you're a foreseeable author of who knows when. And I decided I wanted to, and I did. And at that point, through writing the book, one of the things that I inadvertently did was like a skill set resume. So I was looking at my whole life, this timeline of my life and the things that I had learned that transferred into a skill. And we do that all the time without realizing it. So it's actually something that I do in my coaching business. I want people to realize how incredible they are. And I kind of started to gather information, like what skills did I learn just from the school of life? What did I learn from working corporate? What skills did I learn from being a stay-at-home mom? Where were all these? And then from specific jobs I had, what training did I have? And realized that one of the things that I loved to do the most was to train foster parents, which is similar to teaching, which is similar to coaching. And that was the environment I love being them in, taking them from one place to another place. So coaching was an easy segue from what I had been doing. And then I kind of compiled all my formal training, added some on to make sure that I really had the skills to implement it well with the women that I work with. So the other reason I think all of us are coaches is because at my worst, I'm my avatar.
True. I
There
know.
you go.
Yeah.
Right?
I get you.
There's this big thing about like create your avatar. And I'm like, that's just, let me do a picture from 10 or 15 or 20 years ago of myself. Kabam. Her name is Jennifer. She was a hot mess. She had a crisis of faith. She had a crisis in her marriage that ended in divorce. She had a crisis as a parent going from homeschooling her kids to, I mean, so I really wanted to work with women who were going through a crisis in enter thing here, because from infertility to having kids to adopting to foster care to staying at home to working corporate and to launching my own business, I've probably touched on most of what the crises are that women are going through.
So what is it that drew you to specifically work with Christian women? What is it about that faith element that is so important in the work that you do?
That's you have no idea what a good question that is. I actually worked with executive women and I loved it. And one thing that I realized, I had a friend that called herself my best friend. Yeah, Jen and I are best friends, which is fine. I would have said the same thing. And when she found out several years into being my best friend that I was Christian, we are no longer friends anymore. That situation made me realize that one of the parts about me, my Christianity, my spiritual religious beliefs that I hold so dear, that's the most intimate part of me emotionally, I'm not sharing. I'm being passive about it. I'm being passive about what I share. I'm being protective about that part of who I am. Because, you can get put down in a lot of ways. Getting put down in certain ways hurts a little bit more. And that one hurts. And also, I was in a cult and left a cult 17 years ago. And my baggage from that means that when I get sort of attacked for my Christianity, it hurts me a little bit differently. I have to really work through that in a different way. And I think, honestly, there's fear in that. I was afraid to step out and step forward and be like, this is who I am 100%. I am totally raw and authentic in every way in my life, except I was passive about being Christian. I don't think you have to cram anything down anybody's throat. I really don't. However, adding that my coaching program and platform is exactly the same, except I'm like, oh, now I get to sprinkle Jesus. And I do probably a little more than sprinkling, but I added that into what I was already doing. And for me, it was the missing link because it was the part I was not as willing or not as comfortable sharing of myself. And it was also one of the bigger crises I had 17 years ago. So I brought that in because it means so much to me. And for the women I also found there's a different layer of struggle with women who are Christian as opposed to not. A lot of people who like to go to church and believe in Jesus and all that stuff, we have sometimes an added layer. We pad the guilt and the fear and all of those things. So as women, we do a bang up job of that. But if you're also a Christian, you can just pad that. And sometimes our feelings of failure or guilt or shame are even more. And so it was actually not changing my demographic. It does as much as it was showing up.
Gotcha. So what is it? I think what's so interesting is, because as a Christian myself, I've had to discern and decipher what are the tenets of my belief versus maybe some of the quirkiness or misguided direction, like the damage that sometimes the church can inadvertently cause, right? And that depends on the congregation. That's so specific and unique in some ways. What is it that you've noticed about Christian women as it relates to their like struggling with a sense of purpose or self-confidence? Because those are two areas that you touch on in your coaching program. What is it how do you think faith plays into this, having their faith journey intertwines or ties into the questions of purpose and the struggles with confidence?
I think that as women, we want to have a purpose and a passion and direction in life, and we want to have better self-esteem and better confidence. And listen, here's the biggest thing about Christianity for me is that I have this book called the Bible that I use. It has lots of, like, all the answers in it, right? And so when I look in that and I read about my purpose and stuff, I feel a little bit more pressure. Personally, I feel a little bit more drive to figure out what my purpose is. It makes my heart hurt a little bit more if I'm having a lack of confidence or self-esteem. So again, I think you're taking what every woman feels, Christian or not, and my husband and I have this conversation. He says, every answer's in the Bible. And I'm like, yeah, but that doesn't make the anxiety feel less painful when you have it. Just because the answers are there, just because you have that support, just because you go to church, doesn't mean you're not going to suffer from, I'm using anxiety as an example. And when you do, that's a little bit harder because you know that there are answers. So yeah, why are you feeling X, Y, Z? And I just think that, again, it's an extra layer that women are dealing with, where we want to find our purpose in life and be an entrepreneur. When I wasn't fully embracing Christianity, I didn't want anything less. My program wasn't different. Like, nothing was different about the situation, except I just didn't talk about it. Yeah. I just didn't share who I was completely. I left that out on the back burner because that was mine and it was personal. And adding that, it's one more layer that makes it that much more difficult. And that's sad because it should give us some relief.
Right. Well, and I think also when you have that faith element on, you have when you have Christianity and you have the scripture that talks about focus on things above, not on earthly things, and whatever is pure and joyful, and I think on those things. And there's so much gratitude and like gratefulness around what God has done for you. It's like, well, why do I still feel this way? And why do I, where can I go and process this? And your congregation may or may not be a safe place to explore that. Because sometimes what I've noticed in my journey is there's like a measure of grace to struggle with something, and then you're kind of expected to move forward and move on. But sometimes these struggles can take a while, right? And so when you find women who come into your group program and you're giving them this safe space to acknowledge these feelings and wrestle with these and come to terms with the truth of what they're feeling. What is that like? Like, what is it? Like, how do you come alongside and help women who show up in your program and come with their full, beautiful mess?
First, I think it's important to meet them where they're at. And I don't know where that is, and I'm not judging where that is, but it's meeting them where they're at. And that each of us, there are some things that are real common themes, like you mentioned, purpose and self-esteem. So maybe we could use those as two examples of something that's a more common theme, but it's deeper too. And it's also the traumas that we've experienced. So if a woman has experienced, she may be showing up in a certain way, and why, and where does that come from? Because she's projecting something that she feels, and where does that come from? And often it comes from a past trauma that hasn't been dealt with. And a really easy common one is a sexual trauma. So there are a couple of different things. Meeting a woman where she's at in the group program. Basically, my goal is to change the lens in which you view the world. So if you're in not a great mood and you're in a rush and you're driving on the highway and someone cuts you off, you might get real irritated real fast, right? Just be mad. And you may be in a great mood on another day, same thing happens. And you're like, well, what I always say is I hope you make it to your wife's birth. I'm assuming that they're driving really fast and cutting me off because his wife is pushing a baby out in the vehicle right now. Right. So there are some days. So why does the exact same thing trigger you in completely different reactions on 2 different days, a similar situation? Well, it's because of the space we're coming from. It's the lens we are viewing the world. And it's also our relationship with ourselves, which is the single biggest relationship we need to work on. And part of that is meeting you where you're at and helping you change the lens in which you view the world. And part of that is what traumas are hidden underneath that are triggering some of these things. And I think you have to address both, because you can get past trauma. You can get through trauma and get past it and view things from a very, very different vantage point, just like 2 different days at the same type of situation. You can view it, and you can view it in a more positive light permanently. You can get through a trauma, and then your reactions become different. And the heavy bag we carry full of rocks of all of our baggage, we can lighten that load a little bit. And that's the goal. So there's not like I wave my wand and it's done. And I also feel like every one of us has a specific struggle designed for us. And I always believed it was never more than I can handle. And it's always for two reasons, for learning and for teaching. So what am I supposed to learn? And how can I use this to teach others? And just that shift within a struggle makes a big difference.
Yeah, it's having that perspective. Sometimes it's hard to have that when you're in it. And sometimes that's a realization that comes kind of in hindsight. Because in the moment it's like, well, I don't know what I'm going to learn from this. I don't know how I'm going to teach others that. But inevitably, when you make it through that valley, when you make it through that hard season, you can, you come on the other side and you're like, oh my gosh, there's something I can take from this and help others. So if you had, so I know we're going to wrap up. If you had, you talked about changing the lens of helping women kind of shift the lens with which they view the world. What would be, for a woman who is listening to this right now, listening/watching, if you could give them one piece of advice on, or something that they could do today to even make a subtle shift that will help to take even just a little rock out of the bag on their shoulders, what would be one piece of advice you'd give?
I think tuning, this one's so fun. It's one of my favorites. I probably say that every time because I really love these things. I was in an office of 7 women about 17 years ago, and we did a Secret Santa. So you can do a search called just Secret Santa and do images, get one that's pretty in depth. I mean, I have one, it's just one example of many. And you have to, we had to fill out favorite color, favorite drink. Like if you're going to spend $25 on me and do little special things, and you can do 5 or 6 little special things, what's my favorite candy bar? And I was at a really low moment where I was working 3 jobs, and the situation was, I was very stressed, and I was having a lot of crises in my life. And I took about 3 days to fill it out. The thing is, we should know ourselves well enough to be able to answer a simple question. So download one and fill it out. And if it takes you time to write it down, even if it doesn't, I had it on my refrigerator. I made a photocopy of it and I put it on my refrigerator because I never wanted to hit the point where if you were like, hey, Jen, I'm going to stop here. What do you want me to grab you? You'd be like, oh my gosh, Ashley, thank you so much. Get me this. Get me a dark chocolate hazelnut Ritter Sport. It's my favorite, right? I want to know that answer immediately. And it's more the attitude about it than it is the specific candy bar. I folded it up and I still have it 17 years later. It's in my journal, and it fell out of my journal once, and my husband picked it up and he came into the house and he goes, have you been speed dating? And I was like, what? Like, when? First, when? But I'm like, no, I've never been speed dating. Why? And he's like, well, because you have this paper. And I was like, oh my gosh, that's so funny. So here's the good news for any of you that are single. It doubles as speed dating. So, but the biggest thing is remember who you are and what you like. And then if there isn't someone, if you don't have a Secret Santa doing it for you, do it for yourself because you're worth it.
I love that. I love that because how often are we asked, hey, can I get you something? Hey, if you're going through a hard time, what can I do to help? And we just say, no, it's okay. Thank you. And it's, but I see this exercise as a way of starting to get into a practice of receiving help and not having to carry the burden entirely on your shoulders. So I can see it has a lot of benefits aside from, speed dating, which
there's always speed dating if you want to do that.
Always speed dating. And
when somebody asks you if you want something or there's any situation or, hey, can I bring you dinner? Try to say yes, because you're robbing the other person of their blessings to serve you. And you're also missing out on the fact that person could be a resource for you, because we can't all be good at everything.
And it really, I know that, I live in the South. So there's the Southern culture of wanting to take care of other people, but also not wanting to overburden other people. So you're wanting to help others, but at the same time, it's hard to receive because it's like, I don't want to put you out. But to your point, you are robbing them the opportunity to serve, and you're robbing yourself of the opportunity to receive, which is really hard to do, especially if you're used to doing it all. So I love that one.
Do it, receive. You will love it. You'll be better for it.
Friends who are watching, if y'all want to DM me and like send me dinner, I will gladly receive that. So.
Yes. Here in Reno, we accept dinner.
Yes, exactly. Texas, Reno, we'll take all the dinners. So Jenn, we had mentioned at the very beginning that people could get in touch with you at momof18.com. So momof18.com. I'll drop that in the comments also. Is there any other way that people can get in touch with you, or is that the go-to spot?
That's the go-to spot, because you can email me. My email's directly on there. There's a contact form in every social media that I'm on. So basically, momof18.com is the hub so that you can reach out to me in the way that you're the most comfortable with.
Perfect. Well, thank you so much. I just love getting to know you, getting to hear your heart, kind of your own journey, how you're your own avatar, and you're using your experiences and your own recovery from trauma to help women and in the unseen parts of women and helping them heal. So thank you so much.
Thank you.